New day, new laptop to be saved. And this time we have an Alienware M17R2. This is a huge 17-inch laptop. And the customer sent this in because they said that the laptop isn't charging the battery. They changed out the battery, put a new one in, it still isn't charging. We're gonna want to repair this motherboard so they don't have to replace the motherboard. So let's see if we can get this one figured out. All right, let's see. The laptop doesn't turn on the battery. Pressing the power button, nothing's happening. Let's plug in the charger with the lid closed to see if it starts charging. What we're doing is we're going to look for the current draw here, and I'm seeing 0 current draw, which usually is kind of strange. That usually means that the EC chip isn't coming on, but we will see what it does when we press the power button. All right, and I'm showing this laptop is completely dead, so there's nothing. The power button does nothing. I'm not seeing any current draw here. To me, this looks like there's a short on the motherboard. Usually what you would see here is you see 0.01, 0.02, which is like 10 milliamps or 20 milliamps being pulled on the charger here. And that is the LDO, linear voltage regulator, that comes on as a 3.3 that powers the EC chip or the Super I/O chip. And that chip is a little microcontroller chip that is communicating with the power button and communicating with the lots of other devices like charging and things like that. So we could have an EC issue on this if it's having charging issues and it's not powering on. But we're going to have to open it up and take a look because if we're having 0 volts here, that means that the LEO is not coming on, which means that there may be a short on the motherboard that's preventing it from coming on. So let's open up the bottom and take a look inside. Looks like we're missing a few screws. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws are missing on the bottom. So somebody has been in here. That's what usually ends up happening, is I'm kind of the last resort for fixing laptops like this. People will send it to other repair shops and then they can never get it fixed. People send their laptops to me all the time whenever no one else can fix it, because they want me to save the laptop, because if you're having to replace a motherboard on one of these, it gets pretty pricey and it's maybe not even worth it. But if we're able to repair the motherboard instead, then we can save this laptop from going to the landfill. All right, and the bottom is off. So let's take a look inside and see what we have going on. This little cover just comes right off. All right, so the DC jack is plugged in. I was kind of thinking that maybe it was the DC jack was unplugged, but it is plugged in, and the battery's plugged in here. And this it does look like an OEM battery. It does have a serial number here, so that's a good thing. Here's a couple of fans, and there's an NVMe drive, and there's another one right here. This is just the 2230 version of the NVMe, and this is the 2280, so it's the full size. These boards use these little junction boards, and they have these little interposers here. There's always issues with these interposers because there's little tiny pins that get bent, so that could be an issue. But I'm going to take some measurements real quick. Let's get under the microscope. What we're looking at here, this is the DC jack. This is where the voltage comes in, and if we look at the pins on here, I didn't mean to unplug it. I'm just trying to show you what the wires look like here. Was that even plugged in all the way? There we go, now it's plugged in all the way. So we have, these are the red, so these are going to be the positive 20 volts coming from the charger. These are black, and then this is going to be the PSID pin. This is a communication pin. On Dell laptops, they have an extra pin that communicates with the charger and tells it what wattage the charger is. Because these laptops use usually a 240 watt, sometimes a 330 watt charger. If I plug in, so the charger I use here for testing is I think a 180 or 150. When I plug that in, it's going to say it's an underwatted charger because it's communicating with it, but it will still allow it to charge or still allow it to run. It will just not ask for more current than the charger can provide. So that's why it has that communication pin. But I'm interested, this didn't seem like it was plugged in all the way just now. So now that I have it reseated, let's plug it back in and see if we are getting that 0.01, 0.02. Oh, we are, so there you go. So we're getting 0.13, 0.29, 0.43. Now, why is it going up like that? The laptop's not coming on. On Alienwares, they don't come on when you plug it in. So that usually is either pointing towards a short or battery charging. And to me, that looks like it's battery charging. 2.42. And we can check that by measuring the voltage on the battery. So here's the battery connector. Let's measure across here. Okay, 12.23. And what we're looking for is that voltage going up. Okay, 12.24. So the battery is definitely charging. We can see that we have 2.44 amps going in. That's not the laptop turning on, that's the laptop charging the battery. So we know that's charging the battery, so that's working. So the customer said, laptop no longer charges, replace the battery to try to fix the issue, but still does not charge. Okay, well, I'm obviously seeing it charging. So this usually points to them having a bad charger itself. And what will end up happening is, remember we talked about that PSID pen? If your charger cannot communicate with the laptop, then it will show up as an unknown adapter, and that will allow it, or that will prevent it from charging the battery too. So we'll test their charger in a second. But let's go ahead and power this laptop on, and we can take a look here and see. Because the battery is showing 12. Oh. And a screw just fell out of here when I flipped it upside down. So I don't know where the screw came from, but it just fell out. This battery is missing a screw. This motherboard's missing a screw right here. I know people have been in here, so yeah, but that's not good if a screw just fell out. What I want to see is if this laptop will actually turn on, because you remember whenever we first opened it and we pressed the power button, well, it should have came on, but it didn't. And I know the DC jack wasn't plugged in, and that's fine, you know, if it's not going to power on with that, but because the battery was showing 12 volts, except let's see if it's a 4-cell or 3-cell. Yeah, battery's only a 3-cell battery, and so it's 11.4 volts, and then fully charged would be like 12.6 volts. And so when we were measuring the battery, we were already in the 12 volt range, which means that the battery's like 70% charge, 80% charge, something like that. So if the battery's 80% charged, it should have came on when we pressed the power button. So we'll have to look into that. We are getting a charge light here. We are seeing charge current. If we press the power button, are we getting it the power on? We are getting it the power on, 5.3 amps. It just jumped up to that and then turned off. Now it's coming back on. It might be a CMOS reset. And what we're going to do is we're going to boot it into the Dell Diagnostics. The Dell Diagnostics screen will show us like the charger, the wattage. It shows us how much current's going in the battery. It shows us what the percentage is. It could show us like the health of the battery itself, since they put a new battery in here. It will show us a bunch of different things, so that way we can test it to see if it will run on the battery, if it's charging the battery, which we already saw it's actually charging. We'll be able to test their charger. We're going to let it go through this little CMOS reset startup, which takes a little bit longer on the first boot up. And it's pulling 5.4 amps. That means it's charging the battery and powering the laptop at the same time. And you see it's only pulling 100 watts. Remember, my charger that I use for my test charger is only like 150 watts or 180 watts, I can't remember. And so it's not going to pull more than that. When we plug in their charger, which is 240, then we'll be able to see it's pull more current. And it's just hanging here. It's not doing anything. That's not a good sign. And usually whenever we have a CMOS reset happening, we should see current going up and down, because the laptop's going through different stages of testing different devices and getting everything programmed. And we're not seeing that. We're just seeing it stay steady, which isn't a good thing. Now let's see. Looking at the caps lock, and the caps lock is not, the light's not coming on and off, so it means the laptop's not running and just not having a display. It's just not even running. I'm going to power it off. So I press the power button once, nothing's happening, so it's not even responding to that input. I'm going to hold down the power button for 15 seconds or so, 10 seconds. Okay, it does shut off with that, so it is communicating that way. And we can see it went back to battery charge state. And then we're going to turn it back on again and see if we can get it to power on properly. These motherboards kind of have everything built on it. So the GPU is on there, the CPU is built on there, the RAM is built on there, the memory. So you can't even change that. I can't go, okay, well, let's reseat the memory and things like that. You can't even do that. But you know, we had a screw dangling around in there. So I'm hoping that nothing else got messed up. And the customer sent it in saying that everything worked, it no longer charges, unless what they're saying is it no longer turns on, but they think that the battery not charging has something to do with it not turning on. But these laptops don't need a battery in there for them to turn on. So that could be unrelated. They could just kind of be diagnosing it incorrectly. So we'll figure that out shortly. Okay, we did get an Alienware screen. Okay, so it is posting now. I had to just cycle it back down, cycle it back up, and then that was able to get the CMOS reset to finish. I know these things look like they have older BIOSes, but these are the BIOSes they have on these Alienwares for some reason. I don't know why they put them on here, but even the newest Alienwares have this exact same BIOS. 130 watt chargers being detected. That's my charger. So I thought it was a higher one, 150. So it looks like I'm just using a 130 watt. It doesn't really matter what wattage you use on these machines. They'll power on with any of them. And what I don't like using is a 240 on everything, because some machines that require a lower wattage don't detect the 240 properly. So I always do a 130 because that can be detected by any machine. But in my power box here, my Dell power meter I made, you just plug in whatever charger you want into the back, and then it will work. So it's not like I have it hardwired or anything. So I can switch it out anytime I need to and use the customer's charger. All right, so that's showing up there. What I want to do is I want to boot into that diagnostics we were talking about. So I'm going to hold down the FN key and then hit the power button, and that will boot us straight into Dell Diagnostics. The other option is you can turn it on, hit the F12 menu, that's the boot menu, and that will take you to a list of things to choose from, and then you could choose the Dell Diagnostics. But if you just hold down the FN while you hit power button, that will boot straight into Dell Diagnostics. And I'm going to cancel. I don't want a full scan. I just want to get to this one screen. Okay, touchpad's not working. We'll have to look at that. So I'm just going to tab over to our advanced here. And I'm showing the battery is charged currently at 8%. That seems like a low percentage for it being 12 volts, but it actually says the battery voltage is at 12.1. So it must be putting in that higher voltage when we're measuring at the jack, but the battery actual voltage is only 12.1. So it could have been that when we tried to turn this on earlier and it didn't turn on, that the battery was actually at 0%. And so now it's up to 8%, so I bet it will actually power on off the battery. So we are having 3,500 milliamps going in, 3.5 amps going into the battery, pulling 5.64 out of the charger, if you look at our meter here. But so 3.5 of that's going straight into the battery. And the battery's health is excellent. So prior to this, if we look, we see that it was not anything. It didn't know what its health was, because I guess the battery was at 0% and it wasn't able to communicate. So I'm not seeing a charging issue with this. I see that the battery is actually in excellent health. It's charging just fine. The laptop's running off of it just fine. So that means that they probably have a bad charger, and then I don't have to fix anything on this. So here's their charger, 240 watt. Let me plug it in and we can test it. All right, so I have the charger plugged in, and what I'll do is I'll just plug it into my power meter here. So I can just unplug this charger. And in the back, it just has a regular DC jack. So I just made, this is a 3D printed box with a meter here, and you just plug in any charger into the back. So I'm gonna plug that in the back. So now we're still pulling the same amount of watts. We can actually see that their adapter's detected at 240 watts, and it does say it's charging, and it's still charging at 3.5 amps. So at this point, I have no idea why it's not working, but I do have one idea why the laptop is completely dead and not working. Oh, you know what? You remember the first thing that we noticed when we were looking at it and the DC jack kind of fell out when I was trying to show you the wires? It just wasn't plugged in all the way. Huh. So I wonder if that's what their issue has been the whole time, is that wasn't plugged in all the way. You know, I think that's probably what's going on, because their charger's working fine, the battery's working fine. And I'll go ahead and run full diagnostics right now and see if we can boot to their Windows operating system. But I'm pretty sure that's it, and that means I'm not even going to have to fix this machine, and I can just send it back to them without having to charge them with a repair or anything like that. So I'll run this full diagnostics real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, so there's a critical error with the hard drive. Incorrect status, we'll figure out that. All right, so the other hard drive had an issue also. All right, so it passed every single test except for a hard drive test on one of the drives. So, and then this touchpad doesn't work. So let me see if we can fix this touchpad by just reseating that connector. The touchpad, and then we have missing screws here. Okay, so I'm gonna, let me get under the microscope to show you real quick. So on this machine, it's kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can point this out. So this is the keyboard connector. So this goes down to the keyboard. This right here is the touchpad connector, and it's actually on the back side of the board. And I'll grab another motherboard to show you. Let me grab that. All right, so here's the motherboard. That's the same motherboard that goes in this machine. So on this side, we have a connector here. It's going to be the keyboard, most likely. And on the other side, I think these are the touchpad and maybe the keyboard backlight or vice versa. But the way they have this set up is it's actually very hard to connect these connectors. And so you have to connect them and then put the motherboard in. But if people have been in here messing around with stuff, it may have come undone. So I'm thinking that the touchpad's not working because it's unhooked there. I'll pull the battery out. I'll see if I can get that fixed. You guys don't need to see all that, right? Well, then one of these hard drives weren't working either. It looks like that's a SATA. This one is a ST Gold. This is an NVMe. I'll have to pull the battery out to see if I can get to those connectors real quick. Okay, got the battery out. Let's see. So this one is the touchpad. So here's the touchpad. The cable goes like this and it plugs in underneath the motherboard, and the touchpad's not working. So therefore that means that the connector is probably not plugged in all the way. So let me unplug the keyboard. See if I can get it seated. Oh no, look, it just came undone from here on this side. So let me plug this back in. I don't know if it was latched in all the way on the touchpad itself, and that would be nice because I don't want to have to deal with pulling the motherboard out to hook that up. So, especially since I'm just trying to, since everything else worked, then I don't have to charge a bunch of labor. I was just going to charge them with a diagnostic charge and send it back to them. Okay, that's plugged in. That's plugged in. All right, let's boot back into diagnostics and see if the mouse works. You see, I don't even have a battery in the system right now. It doesn't even need a battery. And I'm holding down the FN key and we're going to boot straight into diagnostics like we were talking about before. Now it's doing a CMOS reset again. We took the battery out. We didn't have it plugged in, so it's going to take a second for it to start up again. So we're just having to wait a little bit longer. Okay, there's that screen. All right, so now let's go into diagnostics. And we'll test that mouse. Mouse still is not working. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pull the motherboard out and make sure that connector's seated in there good. Actually, let's see. If the test is running and mouse is actually disabled, let me try this again. Nope, still not working. I wonder if we could see it with the microscope. That would be nice. Okay, it looks like it's plugged in correctly. So we got a flip latch here. So I'm just gonna flip that up. If I can get it in there. It doesn't have much room to flip up. I just want to look at this. This looks a little bit messed up. Ah, look. So someone had messed with that. So I don't know if it's holding down properly on this side. Okay. Is this cable even the right one? It looks too wide. It is. It is too wide. This is the wrong cable. Or it's the wrong touchpad or something. Somebody changed out something. Oh, okay, I'm seeing some things going on. Okay, here we go. This wing is broken off. Let's get that out of there. Okay, flip that up. I'll slide this in here. There we go, get in there. Nice, okay, get under there. Okay, all the way in, flip that down. All right, now we're perfect. We're not on top of anything. We have the line lined up there. Let's check this other connector because I did start opening that up. Okay, we look good on this one. Okay, let's try it again. What do you think? You think we connected it properly this time? Yeah, that little corner piece had been busted off, so it was just a piece of plastic there, so it couldn't sit down all the way on that one side. So we got that out of the way, and now it should sit down properly. All right, we'll go through the CMOS reset again, and then we'll test the mouse. All right, so we're in the diagnostics again. Let's see if the mouse works. I gotta cancel out of it, and we have the mouse working. Okay, so we have that. So now the last thing that we needed to look at was the hard drive was giving an error. I don't know which one is, but let me install this battery back in here. We're gonna replace any of these missing screws, and then we'll get everything working. And the hard drive could work fine. It just it's like end of its life or something like that. And so that's just something I'll let the customer know. Because one's going to be the boot drive and one's going to be the storage drive, an extra storage. So the drive they have here is just a 2230. It has nothing to mount to, and they had this on top, and I actually think that it was slipped into the connector with it, because there's really no way for this to mount in here properly. I can't get it to go in and stay. And so we might have to tape this on if they want to get this drive working in here. So if we put it in properly, it's going to sit like that. But I'm going to go ahead and just put a piece of tape here. Yeah, there's nothing holding this in, so that might be why that drive was maybe detecting weird. Yeah, it doesn't want to stay. Yeah, you really should have a bracket to screw on here, but this machine doesn't have one. Let me see if I have an adapter for that. This one's for an NVMe, so I can't really do that, I don't think. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to detect properly if I put it in here. So this takes a 2230 and turns it into a 2280. And then you can plug it in the full amount. And then it will mount and screw properly. But this is keyed to a NVMe. It says PCIe, so I don't think it's actually set up right, because it's a SATA drive. It has two pins here. So we're just going to stick it like this, and then we'll put this on top, and then I'll put a piece of tape to hold it. All right, we'll just do it the dodgy way, right? This is probably not his main boot drive. This one is. There we go. Better than factory, right? The battery's plugged in, both hard drives are back in, and then we fixed that touchpad issue. I just have a couple more screws I need to replace. Okay, we got all the missing screws replaced. So now that's all back to factory. Put this cover back on. All right, let's test it. All right, we're just doing our final boot up, make sure it boots the window, make sure that the mouse works. It is charging the battery. We are testing their original charger. All right, it looks like they're having an issue booting the Windows. They have two hard drives in there. One of them actually has Linux on it, and the other one has a Windows install, but it looks like it might need to be reinstalled. So maybe there is one of the hard drives is failing. Probably this Windows one has an unexpected error. Or maybe they don't even have an OS installed all the way, or they used to, they switched to the Linux, but I'll talk to the customer about that. But it looks like everything is working on this. This was actually a short video. It was, but it's interesting, because you have people going down their own rabbit holes trying to fix something. They replaced the battery, they thought it was a charging issue. It ended up just being the DC jack wasn't plugged in all the way. But I guess whenever they're changing out the battery, they messed up the touchpad, so I was able to fix that connector. But I'm just going to charge them a diag charge. I'm going to send it back to them. I would love to know your thoughts on this one. It's pretty simple. But hey, thanks for watching.
I saved another laptop!